it should be good.
You're up, John.
All right, guys.
Friday.
Welcome back. It's been a long week since the Arnold, but we are here. Troponin supplements.
It's only been a week.
Yeah. So, we wanted to hop on here, even though we're probably still feeling a little fatigued from the Arnold, but wanted to hop on, go over a little bit of how things went at the Arnold for everybody and sort of our experiences and getting to meet a lot of you guys and shake hands and get to catch up with a lot of you guys that have supported us forever and a lot of new faces too. So extremely thankful for that. But yeah, so Justin, how did you think the weekend went?
I mean, it was a great weekend. It's tough, as our first like big event like that. It's if anyone who's like worked or who's ran a booth, I guess, knows how insanely expensive they are, especially the Arnold. And it's not just booth space, which is really expensive, but getting everyone out there, making sure everyone got a place to stay, feeding people. It was a brand new booth for us, and so getting a custom booth made is expensive. All the product giveaway, it's a big gamble because we do really, really well on our ads. We don't have a big ad budget at all, but our return on ad spend is much. Our ROAS is as high as 10. It's almost it's 9.81 on Meta right now. It's almost 7 on Google, which is outrageous. 4 is really, really good. And so like when you're writing these checks, your brain's like, oh my God, if because we don't spend anywhere close to that on ads. Our lifetime ad spend isn't what we spent in 3 days at the Arnold, and you're like, oh my God, but you don't know that you'll get the conversions if you spend it on ads. But so we don't know, but I think it was really, really good for us. I mean, we got to see a lot of people in person, really talk to them. I thought we had a really good reception. I mean, I think I walked around. Our booth had really good engagement. One of the times I went to the bathroom. Actually, I ran out. I had to talk to Brandon real quick. It's pretty crappy reception in there, so I went out and then I came back and our row was empty until you got because we were near kind of back from the entrance wall, and then you just saw a wall of people. And I was like, oh, well, that can't be our booth. And it was our booth. I mean, that was when Bumblebee was there. We had Transformers there. We had a human Transformer and John Heck there standing, towering over everyone. And so I think it was really good. We're seeing a lot of site engagement, a lot of boost in traffic. Sales have picked up. But I think it was really good getting out there and getting to talk to people in person. We're going to do it. I think it's going to be our big thing every year. We're already talking about doing FIBO. We don't have time for April. It's in April. We don't have time for that this year, but they have it in Saudi. The Saudi one we've thought about. I'm literally messaging Brandon Curry right now, waiting for Bob Lorimer to contact me about the Pittsburgh Pro. We might have a booth there. We might do some sponsorship there for the Pittsburgh Pro. So it was good. It was just it was a lot. It was a busy weekend, but not like insane. I mean, it wasn't like it was a normal like as far as working hours. It was like what you would normally do in a day, but it's like we all have side stuff too, So like you leave there. It was a little. I mean, if you went to the show, it was more than working because we up at about 7 to get ready for the booth. Booth went till 7 p.m. and then the shows went until about midnight. So John had to be there for his show. He had to compete. So it was a lot. But the big thing is that while we're there, we're not doing our regular job, and all three of us have our day job is not a job that you can take PTO on. Whether you're there or not, when clients are checking in, they're checking in. And, if a client competes and he's 4 weeks out of a show, it doesn't matter if it's Christmas. It's Christmas to you. It's 4 weeks out for him. So I think all of us had a lot of catching up to do when we got back.
That was funny. Like the night before, we're exhausted and pretty just over, you're just feeling exhausted in all aspects, mentally and everything. And like I was trying to go to bed, and I get like 2 or 3 text messages from clients that were like, I love them to death, but I had to wait like a day or two to respond because they were like long, drawn out questions. And it was just like, guys, I compete for
Yeah,
the
in
biggest show of my
hours,
life in like a
in a
few
couple
hours.
hours. Yeah,
Like, please, like just give me a second. So, John, what did you think about your first experience being at a Arnold booth?
It was awesome, man. So that was my first fitness expo ever. I mean, working in
Oh,
football, I've
wow.
never been able to travel to anything like that. During this time of year, we're always just in the middle of the grind of off-season training. So getting just to meet in person a bunch of people who, you've known them on Instagram or just big names in the industry you've followed for years, getting to actually face to face meet a lot of people and then just see
Mhm.
how many just of my own supporters and then Troponin supporters came up and just shook hands, said what's up, told me, hey, I've been following you for the last 5 years. It was humbling to just see how much support we all have, and it was just an awesome environment. Great. Obviously, we were on our feet all day, a lot going on, and clients checking in all day while we're working the booth and everything. But man, it was a blast.
Yeah, that was so I guess, we'll start out. Um I got there. When did I get there? I got there Tuesday morning. Justin got there Tuesday morning. And so we head to the hotel, and Justin ended up driving down because we had to fit everything in. So he couldn't take a flight. So he had
no,
to
like an idiot. Do you know how many? It's disgusting how many flights I've missed in the past year and a half, paid for, and like just
couldn't do
I
it.
don't know what we were thinking. How we thought we could get all that down there. We couldn't get down there in 2 vehicles. I don't know what I was thinking. Yeah, I'll just catch a quick flight down there, and this stuff will magically appear at the expo. But
So we all get in Tuesday, and we start getting ready and stuff like that. And we were able to do our check-ins and have things good. And we were tightened up from Vegas 2 weeks before. And so we felt pretty confident going in to that one. Glutes were showing a lot more, and just we felt a little tighter. And so we fast forward to Thursday. We have everything ready. We get to the show, and we do our. There was like ended up being a huge super heavyweight class. It was like 13 of us, which is big for a national show. I mean, most of the time at USA's there's 5 guys, 6 guys, and so for the Arnold, that was like really big. And so we were like, okay, well, this is cool. We get to compete against a lot of guys, and everyone there was all the competitors are awesome. Everyone was being great, and so we get out there, we're posing, and we're in the middle for like a round or two, and then we get moved to the outside. And so we were like, okay, still smile, still pose hard, and that like either because I'll say it like this, right? Just being sort of objective about it, taking a step back and looking at it. It's like, okay, our physique is a little different than everyone else's. And um I guess it sort of depends on what they're looking for that day, right? It's a subjective sport. So 2 weeks before, they were looking for certain things, and then 2 weeks later at the Arnold, they're looking for a few different things. And so we knew going into the finals that it was we're either going to be first or we're going to be fifth. And so you can't have 4 oranges and an apple and put the apple in the middle. It just doesn't work like that. So we knew. And so once we got called for fifth, we were sort of ready, sort of ready for it. And we're like, okay, cool. We just wanted to put out a product that we knew, hey, we've improved a lot. We're improving every show. We put out a physique that's can be pro ready and ready for pro shows and stuff. And we still have to make improvements for sure. But the end goal is always to put out a pro physique. Realistically, you can get a pro card at any show, a master show, a universe, or shows overseas. So it's not so much of a pro card as it is putting out a good product. And we felt like we put out a great product. Still improving, still making small changes. Got a big growth season plan the next few months, and we're excited about that. But so that's how that went. I will let Justin take over if you want to talk about that a little bit. But then I'll
yeah,
let
yeah,
Justin
that was tough. That was really tough for me because as far as coaching, it couldn't have been coaching. Not like just what the client and I do couldn't have gone better. We were very happy the whole time with John peaking. And after winning in Vegas, 10 days before that, and getting feedback from the judges and basically saying, this is what we want, this is the look we want. It's different judges, but you hear that, and so we weren't looking to do anything drastic. I mean, it literally could not have been better, because we said, if we're 3 pounds of fat 3 pounds tighter, we said that's perfect. And I mean, like, to the decimal place, John was 3 pounds tighter at weigh-in. So going into it, it's like, okay, we beat everyone in this class 10 days ago, and we brought the same package, a little bit tighter, exactly what we wanted. So going in, I was like, couldn't be more confident. And then they moved to the side, and so 99% of the time that means you're 5th or 4th, depending on what side. 1% of the time you're like a Phil Heath, and they do that because you're so far ahead of everyone. And so when they first call you to the side, my brain's like, oh shit, But like you said, I'm not. We're realistic. We know we have eyes. We know where we're at. We know we're ready to turn pro, but we know we're not ready to win the Olympia. And so I'm thinking, geez, I have him first. I don't know that I have him, step to the side first. And we weren't the only ones. Everyone talks after the show in between, prejudging finals, and a bunch of people came up to me and they were kind of saying the same thing. One guy would say, "Oh man, that's awesome." Next guy would be like, "That was crazy. You think they got him in 5th? You think they did?" And so, when John and I talked, the crazy thing about this sport is the best scenario would have been him winning and getting his pro card. Obviously, the worst scenario almost would have been taking a non-controversial second. And he deserves second, because then no one's talking about that guy. That you don't get talked about. You win or you get screwed, really, or people think you get screwed. Whether or not you do, it's the public perception on the internet. You either win or people think you get screwed. Those are your 2 best cases, and that's what we got, the second one of those. And so John's got podcasts lined up. He's got exposure. He wouldn't have gotten it with the second place. Again, obviously, first place is always best. But the weird thing about this sport is John is going to benefit more from 5th than he would have from second, because he'll be on Palumbo. I'm getting a ton of DMs. People are, what the hell happened? I thought he looked great, and it really emphasizes how he looked. And we've talked about this for years, that's really the best path to a successful pro career. It's happened a lot to people. Was it Paul DeMeo and Paul DeMeo and Kevin Levrone in '91 at the Junior Nationals in the USA's? They switched places, and it kind of built both their careers, because the one guy, everyone thought he got screwed at the first show. Then the next guy, the other guy won, and they thought the other guy got screwed. Well, Nick Walker, we talk about him all the time. He took 3rd in the year where I think I had him winning, and I think everyone had him winning, and that kind of blew up his career. And so there's been a long history of guys, possibly deserving a card, maybe not, but definitely not deserving their placing, and in the eyes of a lot of people, and it really builds their career. And so we're hoping to piggyback off that.
Yeah, so it was a great experience, and just we are not stopping. So we've got some really big improvements coming once again. So we're happy about that. But let's go into Brandon Curry, the man of the hour, who looked, in my opinion, and John, I'll ask you too, because Justin's coaching him. So I thought personally that he may have looked better than he did when he won the Olympia. What did you think, John?
Yeah, that's the best he's looked in years. And it wasn't, how long ago was it when he had his Olympia victory? Was that 2019?
6 years ago. He was
6 years ago.
He was 9th last year, though.
Yeah, you could argue
than Arnold this year, probably.
You could argue he looked better than he did 6 years ago, but without question, that's the best he's looked since then. I thought he looked awesome, and he walked into a show where it sounded like, everyone had already kind of crowned Samson or Derek the winner. So, I think for him to have the showing he did and make the placing that he did was a huge victory.
Yeah, so what do you think, Coach? Tell us what happened the days leading up.
Nothing. That's what and I'm not going to say this as disparaging in any way to any top coach, because I look up to a lot of the big coaches, and but peaking the genetic elite in pros is not hard. I'm sorry. I really don't want to say anything controversial, but if you're a coach and you're used to peaking, I'm used to peaking guys who weighed 160 pounds at their first show, and now we have them as super heavies, and they've added 100 pounds in 2 years, and trying to peaking a guy with poor genetics who's just who's earned, like just ground his way up to the super heavies and a shot at a pro card. That's picking guys like that. That's hard. Picking. I mean, I know nothing against like Brand. It's not that Brandon didn't work hard. He'll tell you we worked him hard, and it sounds like that was the big thing. He hadn't worked that hard. We worked him a lot of cardio. Like I said, I did a mutant podcast where I'm from the old school. I'm from the '90s guy. I'm from the 2 hours of cardio days. Like I did. I know there's the science has advanced a lot since then, but the core of where I built from is, hard work pays off. Back when no one knew anything about nutritional science, we only knew no carbs and, starving and cardio. We didn't do that with him, but he worked hard for it, but he never complained. And I've heard over the years from various people that maybe he didn't work hard, and I hate that, because in every case that I've met and worked with someone who had a reputation like that, or I don't think he even had a reputation, but every once in a while someone would talk, it hasn't been true. I mean, he's got videos on Instagram of him doing 200-pound one-arm rows 3 weeks out, and we bottomed his diet out. Let me bring his diet up, actually.
Because he did say, because you were like, oh man, I haven't really heard from Brandon. He hasn't said anything good or bad, so I don't know what's up. And then when you saw him in the room, he looked at you and he goes, man, you pushed me harder than anyone's ever pushed.
Yeah, he was. We got down to I won't show his diet, but we got down to like 300 grams of protein, vegetable only for carbs, and then 7 grams of added fat per meal, which he had never gone. And that was with 90 minutes of cardio. 20 minutes of it was high intensity interval cardio. And we didn't do that for the whole prep. We worked him down, but I think that was 5 weeks out, we maxed him out at that, which is basically, he was probably thinking, what? This guy don't know what he's doing. This can't be right. I'm not eating, and I'm doing 10 times the cardio and work that I used to. But we got him ready early, and then we kind of ate into the show to finally get his skin to thin out, and that was the big thing, was I've talked for years about that graininess is really more a matter of blood volume. When you diet down and you deplete, you shrink down. It's like a balloon. You take a balloon and you take the air out of it, the skin gets all thick and wrinkled, and you can't see through an empty balloon. You blow the balloon up, the skin gets pulled tight, that balloon gets super thin, and you can even see through it. So really, I like to bottom guys out, 5-6 weeks out, and then kind of eat into the show. And typically, you're still hypocaloric. You're still burning fat that final month. But as calories get up, keep increasing and increasing, the skin thins out. You're not so depleted on blood volume. You actually get that microvasculature near the surface of the skin that creates that kind of grainy look. And he had that when I saw him I didn't want to get too excited, but anyone who's prep people knows there's that moment. Like before Vegas, I don't remember what set of pictures it was. With John, John and I know each other enough where I'll even say it. I think there was one set of pictures where I was like, well, we're good. It doesn't mean you're ready for the stage, but where you are at compared to where you've been at previously and where you expect things to go. And when I saw him, was it Tuesday? Maybe it was Wednesday, whatever it was in his room. I knew then he was already grainy, and I was trying to hold back my excitement, because you don't want them, you want people to be confident, but you don't want to be overly confident. But it just went really smooth, really well. I was hoping, really, really wanting him to be in that final top 3 call out. I knew he wasn't winning. I had Derek winning. I had the placings basically where they were across. Typically in the pro shows, they're pretty good. It's rare that I completely disagree. And if I do, it's usually a lower placing. I thought at the show, I thought he could pull out Andrew at prejudging. I came back, looked at the photos where you can see better, because you get 2 different views. The internet only sees the photos, which are one view, and you get to see some things like where they're at in a pose, where their conditioning's at. But there's a lot of motion and movement and in between posings and the way they present themselves that does matter in judging that you don't get. At prejudging, I thought he could have eked Andrew out and got in that top 3 call out. Back in the room, looking at pictures, I could see that Andrew was on point as far as conditioning. You know, when you're no matter how close you are, you're never as close with the judges at the show. So you miss a little bit of that true conditioning. You see more shape and presentation in person, and in photos you can actually see the real conditioning usually. I thought, but I had to place things like it was. I thought Samson, he's so impressive because he's so big, but he wasn't quite dry enough. I thought Derek was mega impressive though.
Yeah, and that's one of those things where, you know, with Samson and, you know, people say the thick skin thing or whatever it is, you know, it's almost, I commend him for competing like a Mr. Olympia, going to the Arnold and risking it, right? And it's one of those things where I think it's just going to come down to before the Olympia, Samson said that he had pushed cardio and things harder than he ever had, right? I don't know if he did the same for the Arnold, right? But just like with Brandon, he pushed it harder than he ever has. His glutes were the deepest they've ever been. His legs looked insane. He had vascularity from his toes to his head, which you go back and look at Brandon's photos from years prior, even the Olympia win, never had vascularity in his legs. Like, he just looked insane. So you almost think like, I think Samson's going to have to realize like, hey, we're going to have to do what we had to do for the Olympia.
He's so big. Time. It's hard to peak 300 pounds. It's hard to prep and, 300 pounds. But the other thing that people like, all of us reading this and watching the show, we compete in a different sport than I call it second bodybuilding. I've talked about it for a long time. You know, the thing is like with Samson, it's not prep like it is for guys at the state level where they're starving for 16 weeks. You know, you can't, when you got 300 pounds of bodybuilding conditioned muscle, you don't get fat. Your metabolism's just too high. I mean, Big John knows. He's a big dude. He knows.
Yeah.
I mean, dieting still sucks, but it's more being precise with the food rather than just straight starving like it is your first couple diets. You just have too much muscle. Your metabolism's too high. So it's really more about, and I've used this analogy before, it's not like entry level shows, it's almost like a kamikaze. Like, you need to sink this ship. Let me just smash into it, When you're like at the pro level, it's not just starve and just full bore. It's land the ship perfectly, But with Brandon with his legs, I think, and this I'm glad this is a good time to talk about cardio and people being afraid of cardio and people thinking cardio takes away your leg size and all those things. One, it doesn't. And really, if you really step back and think about it, and I always think like if you try to explain something to like your grandma about a sport, you really learn like where your dogma is and where you're like where you kind of just things don't hold up. And like with cardio, it's like imagine trying to tell your grandma that you exercise too much and lost muscle, like, because that's what you're saying with cardio. Exercise builds muscle. Cardio builds muscle. It does not build it anywhere close to weight training, obviously. But if you take an 80-year-old woman who's sedentary and have two 80-year-old women, one of them does cardio every day, walking up hills, walking stairs, and one who does no exercise, the one doing cardio is going to have more muscle mass. That's the case. You're working those muscles. Now, why people think you lose size is because a thing that people I don't think really understand, and they definitely don't when you see people when they're trying to fill out a muscle during peak week and they train that muscle. We use liver glycogen to stabilize blood sugar. When we exercise and we use muscle glycogen, we only pull muscle glycogen from the muscle being exercised. So when you're doing cardio, you're constantly in a state of depleted leg muscles because you're using those legs all the time and you're burning that glycogen to fuel the cardio. And that's why it's important to be ready early, because if we would have just stepped Brandon on stage, did hard cardio up until 3 days out and got on stage, his legs would have been flat. But because we got lean early, his legs were flat all prep because of the cardio. But then we got a mega super compensation because we pulled back, fed him. And so even though he did more cardio than ever, his legs were sharper and grainier and all those things than they were before because he had all that extra blood flow there, all that capillary density, blood vessel adaptation, and we were able to fill him out properly. But that's the thing with cardio. And I wish it was more known, mostly as a coach, so I didn't have like small guys who aren't in shape being scared of cardio because they think that's going to happen. It's like, no, your legs they'll be flat while you're doing the cardio and for a period of time after. But if we do it hard enough, early enough, and get ready early enough, we'll have time to fill them back out and they'll actually be better for the cardio long term.
Yeah. Yeah. So what did you take from it, John? What did you take from watching the open guys?
Well, I had a question I'd be curious for you guys to elaborate on a little bit. John, you kind of brought up some of the nuances of the subjectivity of judging. And, as a fan of bodybuilding, you'll hear kind of, is there a shifting standard in open bodybuilding? Are they looking for more of like the aesthetic build versus the mass monster, and it's changed over the years? And then, like in your case, you were talking about, kind of, you got the four apples and you're the orange, and maybe on one day you're first and one day you're fifth. Do you think that just comes down to which judges are judging that particular show? Is this something that's communicated across all judges in the IFBB? Like,
Yeah.
can you
No.
elaborate on
And
that?
yeah, and so I think at the amateur level, there's a bigger, like, it's a wider range of judges and experience and sort of what they're looking for. On the pro level, there's not as many judges on the pro level that are qualified to do those shows, so it's a little more. That's why you see on the pro level, it's a little more consistent of what
If you think about it, sorry to cut you off, but it does make sense. At the pro level, everyone's got all of it. Everyone's got shape, everyone's got size, everyone's got conditioning. You don't get on the Arnold stage or the Olympia stage without those three things. At the amateur level, that's not as common. And so you'll have shows where a guy has really good size or really good conditioning and really good flow, and so you'll have that. It is harder to judge because you have a guy like John who's got really good shape for a super, really good shape. But it's hard because I'm saying this almost making a straw man, because John, it's not like John was small or out of shape, none of those things. But like Anthony guy one, it's very, very big. And so, and then some of the guys that took second through fourth, there's one guy that was pretty good condition, another guy that wasn't the prettiest physique, but was really like, looked gnarly, looked grainy kind of. And so it is a little bit harder. At the pro level, everyone has all the tools. At the amateur level, you got guys who have most of the tools and are still trying to bring up that final tool, and you're trying to compare them all.
Yeah. So there's no hard feelings because, let's just, for example, let's say I went to USA's 3-4 months from now, win the whole thing, right? Does that mean I'm a better bodybuilder than I was? Let's say I peaked the same and everything. No, it doesn't mean I'm a better bodybuilder. Most likely it means that what they were looking for that day, and based upon the guys who showed up, is gonna, it was in my favor. Because sometimes if you have a certain amount of physiques that look sort of the same way, and then you've got one that sort of looks different in a different way, whether it's conditioning or whether it's you're either going to win or you're going to lose, right? You're not going to be put in the middle. So it's the NPC is like, it's interesting because, like Justin said, it's hard to judge because you never know who's going to show up. You're never going to know the majority is going to be, or what the physiques will look like, or what even the judges look for. I had a buddy, who I won't say his name, but he did nationals 2 years ago, and he emailed a judge gave him feedback, and one of the judges there, and also Tyler Mannion sent him feedback. The feedback was completely 180 degrees opposite of Judge and Tyler Mannion, right? So obviously you're probably going to go with Tyler, who probably has the more legit opinion on what you should look like and what you should improve. For instance, I'll say this. It was a lady. The lady who emailed my buddy said, you need to work on your forearms and something else. And we were like, forearms? What? Email Tyler, nothing about forearms, nothing about anything the female referee said. He said things completely different, but he said things that made sense. And he said things that you could see on the physique. You're like, oh, I get what he's saying. Okay, cool. So
at the end of the day, you have to be good at self-evaluation, and that's a perfect example.
Yeah. And so there's different levels of that.
A good example actually was probably North Americans a couple years ago, because the judging has to be consistent is another thing. You can have a guy with crazy conditioning who's kind of small for his class, and another guy who's a little soft but incredible shape, round muscles, and very big. But you can't, if you have the guy winning, like if you have a 227-pound super shredded winning the supers, it's really difficult to to make the claim as a judging panel that you're consistent in what you're looking for if the second place guy is huge but a little soft. And so you'll see kind of shows, like a lot of times Nationals was kind of known for a long time as being a conditioning show. The USA's guys were like kind of bigger or like prettier 90s style physique. North Americans is like the blue collar show kind of. It's not really this linear, but they kind of get reputations, so and it's because it's the national level, everyone doesn't have every tool. And the other thing is you don't know who's going to compete. At the Olympia, you have the competitor list and it's the same guys every year. At the pro level. At the amateur level, there's 30 guys, maybe even more, who could potentially, maybe not in the supers, and there's probably 15 or 20 super guys who would weigh super heavyweight on stage around the nation, around the world, who could win a pro card on any given show day. You don't know who's going to show up. This was way better than an Arnold usually, because John won the supers 2 years ago at the Arnolds. 2 years ago when he was, 30 pounds of muscle smaller and not as conditioned. And so that shows how, extreme it is from a show where, I mean, everyone, this is as good as the Arnold Amateur gets, basically, that super heavy class. And so that's another thing you can't predict for, because you can have, of those 20 guys who maybe can turn pro, you might have a show where none of those guys show up. And that's happened before. Everyone takes the show off. And you got a guy who really has no business winning a pro card. And then the next show, you have 15 of those guys show up, and you got guys out of the top 10 with striated glutes who look like they could be on a pro stage. And so there's just a pretty wide variance.
I'm sure this would never be openly admitted, but do you think that bodybuilders at the high level, are they judged, they're placed purely on how they look that day? Or is there some factoring in, hey, this is a new guy, he hasn't, versus this guy's been grinding it out for 5 years, we've seen him improve every year? Like, does any of that kind of behind the scenes bias?
Minimal. I feel like John lost. See, John, I already thought John already had his should have won, didn't win, used the publicity to win in Toronto. John lost in Toronto, very, very close in the supers to the guy who won the overall, got his pro card. We were in Toronto. John's from the U.S. This guy's from Canada. He had been, top 5 multiple times, kind of where John is now, where everyone's like, Jesus, this guy's, how is he not a pro yet? He's earned it. It is tough in a close, because now this is the third time where John had a legitimate, third time where John had a legitimate claim to a pro card. The Arnold in 2023, very, very close to getting his card. Toronto last year, very, very close to getting his card, and then this year where he beat the guy who won the overall just a week and a half earlier, and so now the next time John gets on stage, if he's on point, the judges, they're not, it's not like they don't play favorites, but it does get to where, like, you can imagine in the back of their head, we're like, God, this is a close call, like even if I'm not sure, do we screw John over a fourth time? Is he, how long before he just, his dad was CIA? How long before there's some retaliation for this?
Right.
Yeah, we could actually say that now. That is true. Yeah. I mean, look, at the end of the day, it's cool because, just because a certain placing at a show, I win and then 2 weeks later I don't win. It's like, okay, cool. We still stick to our plan. We still have some improvements we still want to make. So I will say there was a lot of people asking, I don't know what show we're doing next. We do
I'm
know.
gonna wait till 10 weeks out and spring it on me like usual.
Yeah, like we do know that we're planning to put on some serious eyes the next couple months and taking that very seriously, more serious than we've ever have. But the show, we're not quite sure yet, but we'll figure that out when it comes back.
Yeah, no, John will win. John will turn pro next time. He's been close. It's his time. He's still new to the sport. He's got a wedding in a few weeks. He was, just a couple of years ago, he was the top power lifter in the world in his weight class, top power lifter of all time at 242, And so he's still new to the sport of bodybuilding. He just shot up really quickly. He was the Arnold your second year as a bodybuilder, basically. You almost turned pro, so.
Yeah, it was my second or third show.
Yeah, so he did move. That's another thing, is that really the honest truth also is that you like be careful what you wish for. Do you want a pro card so you can put IFBB in your Instagram handle, or do you want to compete as a pro? There's a big difference, because if John if he would have won, and if they would have given him the card in 2023, it's now 2025. He looks great, but he's not winning the Arnold right now, the Arnold Pro. And so almost the worst thing that can happen is you turn too early. It takes you 2 years to get to where you can actually be competitive as a pro, and no one knows who you are anymore. The best case scenario is basically like Nick Walker. Really, as much as I'm sure that third place sucked for him, deserved a pro card. Everyone was confused. Everyone thought he got screwed. Gets a year of hype, goes in, dominates, gets his pro card, then jumps right on a pro stage and is competitive immediately. And that's what we'll get with John after he turns pro next show.
I will say this is a funny story. So going into a little bit of funny story. So after the show, we finish up around lunchtime for Thursday for the amateur show. And we're like, okay, cool. Brought a good package, let's just keep going. And so we're all like, okay, let's get some food. So I'm like, hey, eating light. I don't want to feel blood sugar going crazy. I just don't want to feel like crap. So we go to this place across the street from the hotel, and I get like a turkey club sandwich, turkey, lettuce, cheese, whatever, and like a little chicken sandwich, and then appetizer quesadilla. And so we're all eating, having fun. A couple hours later, I'm like, man, I need like something a little sweet. I was like, you know what? I don't want to eat like a bunch of ice cream or stuff. Let me just do like a little milkshake. So I get the milkshake, go back to the hotel room, and by this time it's like 7:00 at night. I'm like, okay, I'm not feeling too good. Something's wrong. And I didn't eat that much food. I'm like, something's wrong, man. So I'm on the couch, with my fiance, and I'm like eyes closed. I'm like, oh, that feeling when you sort of start losing control of your body, and you're like anxiety starts coming over you, and you're like, oh man, I think I need to go to the hospital. And so I try to sleep. I wake up 30 minutes. I'm profusely sweating. I'm like, something's wrong. Go to the bathroom and just get sick everywhere. And I start feeling better. I go over the sink, try to clean my face off, start getting sick in the sink. And so eventually, once it all comes out, I clean everything up. I feel great. And so what it was, there wasn't the appetizer of the chicken quesadilla. I don't know if it was too much cheese, because I don't eat lactose pretty much at all nowadays. And so I don't know if I wasn't digesting it, but everything else just was on top, and it just didn't digest. And so it all came out. And so from the show, which ended around lunchtime, 12:00, to the next day, about 8:00 in the morning, I didn't eat food. So almost 20 hours, what was that, 19 hours? I didn't eat, and I barely drank. I tried to drink some water through the night. So we finally get to the expo on Friday, and if you guys came in,
John's feeling like crap, but I was loving it because he's still in stage condition to work.
I was like so dry, and I was like, my head the whole day was dehydrated. And when you're dehydrated, you sort of feel dizzy a little bit, like you're almost like drunk a little bit. And so that's what I felt like all day. So I do apologize if you met me Friday. Saturday was way better, but if you met me Friday, I was just like completely floating.
He looked great.
I remember at one point I actually thought to myself, I was like, did John just like smoke a joint in the bathroom or something? But that makes a lot more sense now.
Oh, dude, I was just not feeling good.
Yeah.
Not feeling good, but that's all right. Had to do what you had to do.
Yeah, that's rough. Booth, working a booth, anyone who's worked a legit 12-hour day at a booth, it's hard when you're like not in prep and not dehydrated. Those are just long days, standing, and I love talking to people, but people think I say the same 5 things in podcasts. You get asked the same 5 things for 12 hours at the booth too, and like to you, it's the same things, but to each person, it's the first time they've discussed it. So you got to give them the whole spiel with full enthusiasm. That's tough when you're, when you didn't spend the night throwing up.
Yeah, I explained how ATP works like 3,000 times and the exact same script every time.
When it gets so bad, you start like words stop meaning anything. I'm like, tropokinase B, tropomino, like just words that I've said a million times in my life don't even just make sense anymore.
Yeah, that was it. You know what? I'll say this about the expo. The expo was overall starting to feel like it was before COVID. And the not only was the amount of people there back to that level,
125,000 passes were purchased, I heard.
yeah, it just felt good. People were walking around, saying things, because COVID 2020, and then a couple years after that, I think, because the first time I won the Arnold was 23, and I remember walking around with Joe Seaman, and it was like empty. It was like a Saturday when you're supposed to be like, quote unquote nuts to butts type thing. It was like you could just walk across any aisle. There was no one bumping into you. And I was like, man, this doesn't feel right, man. And so now I was glad that the expo seems to be back to normal.
I like the layout. It felt like the aisles were a little wider.
Mm-hmm.
And it was tight in the middle a little bit, but that was the big thing I thought, because when I heard the number, that was the best flow of traffic for 100,000 people Arnold. Because I've been to 100,000 people Arnold's where it's nuts to butts, and I remember when Kuklo was on Shark Tank, I was like 2015, 16, something like that, and I wanted to go see him, and he was at their booth was at the far back corner. It took me the entire time I cared to be at the Arnold just to work my way back there. They had the tiny little aisles, whatever it was with the spacing. I don't know if they cut because they have all the external stuff going on, like the strongman and all that kind of stuff. I don't know if they kind of restricted their area. It wouldn't take much. You cut 10 by 10 off each of those areas. It doesn't really feel any different to them, but that adds 2 feet per aisle if you got 5 rows of aisles. It was really smooth walking, hardly any bottlenecks for that many people. It was really cool.
Yeah. It was a great experience. I would say that yes, because healthy food is bad for you. That's appreciate you guys supporting. It was one of those things where, at the end of the day, it's hard because of social media. When you see people every time on social media and then you meet them in person, it doesn't really have that same effect on you type thing. But I will say this time, it was great seeing everyone, talk to everyone, and it sort of brought back memories of the old Arnold. Like the first time I went to Arnold, like 2010, 2011, stuff like that. It felt pretty cool. I will say that Young LA booth was, they did cut the Highland Games, I'm pretty sure. The Young LA booth was absolutely insane. They had to be 7 figures. I bet they spent maybe in the space. I mean, they were certainly over $1 million in their expense for those 3 days easily. Yeah, because I want to say Mutant, because I know what the floor space is. It ain't cheap. I think Mutant was around $220 or $300 for their floor space, and Young LA was double that. And I hate to sound like a dork, like an old head, but when you were walking by the Young LA booth, they had like different sort of sections where they were elevated, like sort of small propped areas. And there was a light board behind it where it would like say the name of the influencer. And it was like, it almost looked robotic to me, where these kids would pop out. And I'm like, I've never seen this kid before. Because let's be honest, most of these influencers have never really accomplished anything. They're good in social media, but they've never actually accomplished anything. So guys like us and gals who compete and do that stuff, we don't really keep up with it as much. And so we see these like people come out for like 30 minutes and then they disappear. And all of a sudden the scrolling marquee changes to a new name. And then there's these other people come up and you're like, the Trent twins, the D-ball junkies, Sarah tomato thrower. And it's like, who are these people? But dude, the young people, they love it, man, because their lines were just absolutely crazy. I think they just like, what I've sort of figured out is like the social media is almost like TV to them. This
my
is
kids
their
haven't watched.
TV.
We haven't had TV, and I think my youngest has never had. We've never had television. I don't think.
And
we've
that's
had
all
TV
we used to
in
watch
15
back in the
years.
day.
Yeah,
like this is their TV, so that's why they sort of cling to these social media people who sort of just pop up out of nowhere and they haven't really accomplished anything, but they're just so popular. That's their entertainment.
I trained at some local gyms. I went to a place called the Armory while we were there, and the TikTokers were in full force at the gym, just seeing the young Gen Z kids there, and I'd see like them getting swarmed and people like young guys taking photos with them, and I'm like, who the fuck is this guy? And I'd ask someone like, hey, who is that? They're like, and they like roll their eyes, be like, oh, it's like a big TikTok influencer. But there was tons of them, and yeah.
it's wild how quickly, if you hit the algorithm right with like whatever you're doing on TikTok, whether it's girls showing naked body parts or, you know, guys acting
What
stupid.
TikTok? What TikTok was that?
Just go on TikTok. There's a million of them. But
Naked
it's crazy
girls
how you can go from
showing.
like literally nothing to like people want to follow you and meet you and shake your hand. And it's like, what? I don't know, man. I'm from that old school where it's like,
This.
this is Goon Platoon, dude. What's going on? But the funny thing is, it's like we're from the generation where it's like, man, you used to have to like accomplish something before that, you know. But the Arnold was cool seeing a different side of like, oh, okay, I get it. Like this is just their entertainment. This is their TV. These are their.
Yeah, I don't want to dog it too much because it's brought so much money into the sport, you know, and to some extent, it's probably like I can imagine 15 years ago, like the board people, you know, all of the message board guys, you know, when Fuad came out, you know, everyone knew him as Haas, or you know, Rep 300 was Ron Partlow. He was the, you know, like, you know, Homunculus was Dr. Scott Stevenson, you know, so it was probably to some extent the magazine guys were probably like, oh God, here comes the message board guys,
the internet guys.
Yeah, so I don't, you know, the only problem is that there's a, you know, they call it an S curve with businesses. You start out, you struggle, and then it grows, and then it kind of looks like the growth looks like an S. And if you succeed, it stays in that top level for a long time. If not, it eventually comes back down. That curve really gets compressed with you know, with going viral or whatever. And so, you know, which, you know, like as someone who's been in the industry since the magazine days, through the message board days, and then now through the, you know, social media days, that's, you know, it's interesting. You know, I love that I have no issues because they brought so much exposure and money into the sport, but it's a much more fickle sport than it used to be because names pop in and pop out. It's so much quicker than it used to be. I mean, so much quicker because the magazine guys' names are still out there, where, you know, influencers have come and gone through several cycles, you know, just in the last
that's true. That's true. If you come up quickly, you're probably going to end up leaving out the door pretty quickly. So we're not
like to come slowly.
It's interesting. It's interesting, man. You know, because it's completely different from what we came up with.
I mean, those guys, they're going to get to their end of their few years of fame, and then they'll have spent the last few years doing nothing except TikTok, and then all right, now they've been replaced with the new popular thing, and then they're not getting hired anywhere. Like then their income's done, and then they're fucked.
It's like you look at the numbers. How many followers does Sam Sulek have on Instagram or TikTok, whatever?
Millions.
Like 1 million, 10 million?
3 million, maybe. I don't know.
No, I think Sam Sulek has. I think he has 6 million on Instagram.
Okay, 6 million people. If you get every single follower to buy a single product for you ever, say a T-shirt, say you have say it's a $30 T-shirt, it costs you $20 to produce, ship, and market, which you wouldn't, but say it does that, and your profit margin 33%, which is pretty standard for most like manufacturing businesses, like clothing. That's $10 per shirt. That's $60 million lifetime purchasing if every follower just purchases one thing from you ever.
Yeah.
Like when you look at the numbers, you don't need to be relevant very long. You can get in, get out, and make an absolute fuckload of money. But then you got to be smart about it. That's the hard part. Is I imagine the type of people who stumble into it that quickly, that young, are probably not setting themselves up with investments and financial security. So that's going to be the hard part.
Yeah.
And I also feel like there's a little.
I don't even know if this is real. If it's real or not.
By the VAR pair. The D-ball junkies.
I feel like there's a difference though between the YouTubers and the TikTokers. Like the YouTubers, I feel like they kind of hit success and they can really maintain it, make a true living. And Sam Sulek, I mean, he blew up on YouTube. People like love who he is.
Much more engaged audience because it's all long form media.
Right. Like he's got like diehard fans who love him versus like the TikToker. It's just like the super short form stuff. I feel like it doesn't get the same engagement and you fizzle out quicker.
Yeah. Well, I think like, I remember it working, like kind of doing a little partnership with someone who had like 15 times the follower count I had, you know? And so, you know, because whenever I do anything like business wise, I'm huge on analytics. So we set everything up. We do a little business thing together, and we can track conversions and where people are coming from. So they have 15 times as many followers as me, but our conversions were pretty equal. The people were coming and making purchases to the thing we did, almost identical in numbers from their, you know, their traffic from my traffic. And I'm thinking like, good Lord, like, how does this work? You know, they got, you know, 300,000 followers at the time. You know, I got like 15,000. This is years ago. And, but I kind of realized, I kind of realized that's what my followers are very engaged. I mean, I see names come through repeatedly. I see names that I've known for 20 years. I see names that I've known, and then their kids are buying stuff now. And I got people who've been customers so long, they email me, and you know, they maybe moved out of the country and their kid goes to college in the States, and we ship stuff to their children at their college when their parents are going to visit. You know, it's like a family. But some people, like, say you do crazy things, chugging a bottle of vodka, really heavy deadlifts, slam the weight down and scream into the camera. A guy scrolling that's like, oh, that's awesome. And they click follow, but it's not an engaged following. And like you said, that's what TikTok is, you know.
Like a ghost follower.
Yeah, people like, oh, they see really exciting videos, they click follow, but they don't know their name. They're not looking for them. They're not searching them on other platforms. So
yeah, it's interesting. It's really interesting, you know, breaking down, like we were talking about earlier, like analytics and things like that. Yeah, it's interesting sort of trying to fit in and follow. I'm actually starting because of John below me. He convinced me to start doing a YouTube. So I'll have some YouTube stuff going. I'll see if that converts, or people are just like, yo, you're so ugly, I don't want to follow you.
Oh, they will. You'll learn. If you think you had insecurities about different parts of your personality or face or anything, you're gonna learn.
Okay.
You're gonna learn.
Okay.
You're gonna learn about your tiny mouth or your Seth Rogen face or what.
So we have
hands,
we have to address something. Okay. And what we're about to address. Okay. So if you know me and you've competed with me, competitors know, right? A fellow competitor, they know. To everyone that comments that I have SEO in my shoulders, okay, especially Giles over in UK. Come on, man. You're better than that. You've been around the sport. You're better than that, dude. First of all, no. I don't even pin my side delts at least a month out. Not even just like with test. Because they're so round. Now, I'll say this. I am very proud of my round cap shoulders because I worked for years doing and Justin helped me with this too, seated dumbbell raises, cable side raises, training my shoulders so much to get that cap because I had bad shoulders. But as I filled out, I noticed I had sort of that 3D muscle belly look, and I just kept working at. I ask my clients, ask anyone at the gym I go to, any gyms, come feel my shoulders, number one. And number two, I don't even train shoulders in the off season. I only train shoulders during prep. 100% facts. If you training partner with me, you'll know exactly I'm not lying. So to the people saying SEOs, I'm only going to address it once. And if you want to keep saying stuff, cool, that's fine, whatever. But no, I have never put synthol in my, I don't even know why you would do that. Guys just put a lot of oil.
Well, they do. But I won't even like knock it because I'm not a fan of synthol because it's not needed. But guys will spot inject, you know, for certain reasons, especially in prep. The thing is, it's a structural thing. If you have wide clavicles, and especially if, and I don't want to say anything negative to you, but if you're like the outer head of your tricep isn't super full, and you have wide clavicles, your shoulders are, because they're going to sit farther out. And if you take a guy with narrow shoulders, even if they do synthol, it doesn't stick out past the outer head of their tricep. So like if you have like smaller out, like Marcus Rule was kind of that way. And now I'm not saying he didn't have anything in his shoulders. He may or may not have, but he had wide clavicles and his outer head of his tricep wasn't really, you know, proportional. It wasn't the best body part. So the shoulders are always going to look like they stick out farther than they should. And so a lot of it, typically with like spot injecting and SEO and things like that. No, SEO is really not used. It's like my top guys, but people spot inject. But it's really what you can do is structurally dependent. Like, you know, if you, depending on the shape of your biceps, you can get like a Marcus Rule look to your biceps, or you can get a Milo Sarchev sideways football look to the bicep. You know, depending on where your lats are, you can get a, you know, like a really full low hanging lat, like a Nastrel Sanbatti, but you'll lose, you know, separation in the back in your back shots. If you have narrow shoulders and like really round triceps, like maybe a Durham Charles or like a Flex Wheeler, you can get away with more localized swelling in the shoulders before it looks abnormal. And that's another thing that people with self-evaluation, you really need to evaluate those things, because they are like, you can benefit from proper use. You know, you got to pin the stuff anyways. You can end up with like Ronnie with massive upper outer glutes, or you can, you know, you can be more specific with it, but it has to be with your body size. Now if John was using SEO, it would be in the outer half of his tricep, and it would not look like he was using SEO. That's the real key. Like, we could use it, and he would never get accused of using it, because of we would do it in his triceps, which would make, I shouldn't have said that, because now we kind of lost that option. But
what a great compliment, though. What a great compliment. I wish I had a body part that people accuse me of using.
Well, you're going to get it with your traps and lats if you compete. Everyone's going to tell you your lats are pinned 100%.
Yeah.
And your traps, they will.
There's no way that's real. It has to be fake. That's the only way. You know why? Because I don't have it. So they have to be using something.
To the viewers, I felt John's deltoids with my own two hands, and all natural.
All knotted up. I mean, natural.
All
and I know, because that was something I really took care in, was trying, like, paying attention to physique, you know. And when I competed, I did, you know, localized injections, you know, especially in prep when they're more frequent. But I knew where I could and where I couldn't do them. And so it's funny, if I ever did get discussed for it, it was never in the parts that it was happening to.
That you were using it.
Funny, yeah.
Yeah, that's the way it goes. But yeah, we just had to address that, because people were tagging me and stuff, and I was like, stop tagging me. But that's the last time I'm ever going to say anything about it. If you guys want to keep talking about it, touche, whatever. I don't care. But yeah. So is there anything, we're coming up towards the end here. Was there anything, Justin, you wanted to drop with Troponin supplements? Any key, you know, special up and coming things?
We got, I'll announce our new product. We have a big sale on ATP right now, 33% off. You know, probably through the weekend, so you have a couple days, but we're just doing a fun little post Arnold sale, because we haven't done a sale in a while. I'm working on getting our prices down. We met a lot of good manufacturing contacts at the Arnold. Really want to try to be more vertically integrated. I'd like to get our own complete manufacturing facility, so we can keep everything in-house, from chemical to bottle, get our prices down. But that ATP is on sale. I'm going to be working on more discounts. I don't want people to only shop for discounts, but I do want to keep our loyal customers happy and give them periodic times where they can get their favorite products at a little better deal. We also have, I don't really advertise this, because the way wholesale is you almost make no money as a manufacturer who's selling wholesale. You know, the industry average for margin for supplements 38% profit margin, and most wholesalers want 40%. You know, so like you break even. But I really wanted to make it, to open that whole world up. And so I don't really advertise it, but I will here, because you guys, anyone listening here is a pretty loyal follower. If you go to our site, you can purchase wholesale pricing and wholesale quantity directly on the website. We have a wholesale section, and it's the exact same product, exact same pricing that gyms, that, you know, Amazon gets their stuff at. So it's like, if you use our products and you know you're going to be a long-term customer, you don't get a better deal. I mean, you're getting it, like, if you buy it at the gym, you're getting it for what the gym buys it for, or what Amazon buys it from us for. There's that. And then also we have I really wanted to come up with a new product. We have like 20 products formulated. It's a long, hard process to get the flavor correct on things, to find the funding for them. But I wanted to bring something up for the Arnold. We didn't get it in time, but we're coming up with an electrolyte powder called LMNOP. Not a direct competitor to Element. I'm hoping they sue us so we get some publicity, but that should be out here probably late spring, early summer. We've slowed the push for it. It's difficult to getting the flavor right. But because I wanted to do it also because every electrolyte powder I see, I don't know who formulated them. The electrolyte ratios are nowhere near related to what you lose in sweat, which is really what you're trying to replace. You lose a different amount of electrolyte because your electrolytes lost like through urination and things like that are more dependent on what your, the concentration of your blood sodium is. They're more dependent on other variables. So they kind of vary a little bit, but your sweat is pretty consistent in the electrolyte content. And that's really what you're trying to replace. And everything's so sodium laden. We do lose a lot of sodium in sweat, but we don't lose like 3 times as much sodium as every other electrolyte combined. So elemental P is going to be more precise, more closely correlated with what humans actually lose from sweat and exercise. And I don't know what it'll go with it, where it'll go, because I really try to just produce a supplement that has correct value, correct use case, not necessarily what will sell. I like Elon Musk one time said something, and people may hate him or love him, I don't care, but this stuck with me. He said something about, someone asked him why Tesla doesn't advertise, and he said they just decided that they were going to put all their time, effort, money into making a better product, and if that's not advertisement enough, there's nothing they can do about it. But he thinks it will be advertisement enough that eventually a better product will win, and that's what I'm trying to do. So this will be for whether it's used for sports like football, wrestling, or in the gym, mixing with whatever. It's going to be more closely related to the actual electrolytes lost from human sweat.
And also, really quick,
it's formulated. It's formulated.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah, it's formulated. The problem is with the problem with that is you're competing. You lose 50% of the pre-workout market because half the people like stem, half like non-stem. So you're getting half the potential sales for the full production cost. And the first run of a new product is very expensive, because you don't have any repertoire with the manufacturer. We do a custom formulation, so we don't use anyone's flavoring. You can steal someone's flavoring. Someone will have a patented flavor. You can just for a fee, you can just use their flavoring, but you don't own the flavor. We don't do any of that, so it takes us longer. Long term, I think it's going to be a better approach for us. I might be an idiot, very likely, but it's a lot of money and a lot of trial. It's like a year of work to get a new product like that out from our end. And we lose half. We only get half our customer base from day one because half the people like stem, half don't. But it's formulated, and that's one of the next products. Same with the protein powder.
All right. So if we don't
totally not intentional, also we're in cahoots. This is unplanned.
Yeah, when like females hang out so much together that all their cycles become naturally. That's how, after hanging out the Arnold with these guys all week, we just wear the same clothes now.
Yeah.
So
hats are in sync.
But yeah, John, is there anything you want to shout out really quick before we head out?
Just that my website, Hammer Chisel Performance, will be launching here soon. You guys can always find me on Instagram, training, nutrition content coming out. Got my YouTube channel as well, and my podcast. Justin was on the podcast recently, so if you go to the link in my Instagram bio, you can find the Spotify or YouTube of that. We did a great episode together.
Awesome, guys. Make sure you check out John, his new YouTube. If you want to watch mine, you can. I'm not saying it's going to be great. It's probably going to suck for a little bit, but you get to see my ugly mug a little bit longer. So make sure you guys come say hi online. And, we appreciated everyone coming out to the Arnold. If you guys did come out to the Arnold, we love you guys for that. It was awesome. It was an awesome time. But yeah, thank you guys for all the support. Logging in, watching us, buying products, buying hats, buying shirts, buying supplements. Truly appreciate you guys. Right below, if there's anything you want us to talk about, we'll come back and look through the comments and bring it up for next week. But other than that, guys, make sure you keep checking us out Fridays at 5:30. We'll keep doing these GOON platoons, be consistent with it. And we'll keep going from there. So for Justin, John, and Big John, we are signing out, and we'll see you guys next time.
Thanks, guys.